Forward to this. Okay, great. So this recording will go up on our um, private website and will be shared around with people afterwards in case you want to rewatch all the goodness. But what we're going to do today is the Sub-Industry Spotlight series, where I interview a commercial real estate executive from a different sub-industry, and this day happens to be um, business development. There'll be some uh, discussion of entrepreneurship and starting your own companies, but the overall theme being business development, which Scott has experience in folds with, as you will see. So I'll do about 30 minutes of questions and then I'll turn it over to you all. So you can either start writing them down in the chat or I will encourage you to go off mute later and say your questions. So with all of that, I will kick it off with our icebreaker. And Scott, feel free to give a little bit of an introduction of yourself. But my icebreaker question is, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah, so I grew up between Illinois and Wisconsin, kind of half and half. And so as a kid, mostly in Racine, from ages like 9 to 18. And yeah, I was always out on a field trying to do something. I played, soccer, basketball, football, tennis. I played tennis in college for DePaul. But even though I was really good at tennis, I aspired to be in the NFL or the NBA. My grandfather played in the NBA, and I kind of always was hoping that I would do that. But I ended up going a different direction in the business side. But that, like most little kids, you had like aspirations of being in the NBA, but probably not the skill set to really get there. So that's kind of where I ended up. So yeah.
Your grandpa was in the NBA. What was?
A long time ago, yeah, he played for this is how long ago he made so little money he had to quit after 2 years to raise my mom and my aunt. But like it didn't pay enough. He played for the Cincinnati Royals,
Okay.
which I think is now the Sacramento Kings. It kind of transferred a bunch of time, and he played for the Sheboygan Redskins. So
Ooh,
it was before you made any money playing the NBA, so it was a long time ago. Yeah,
yeah.
so
Playing for places like Sheboygan doesn't seem like a cash
yeah,
cow.
right, exactly. So.
But would you also just do a brief introduction of who you are, maybe your connection to the Goldie Initiative, and maybe a little bit about your history, but then I'll start diving into the details.
Yeah, sure. So, I'm a commercial real estate, person. Been my whole career pretty much in commercial real estate. I got my law and my MS in real estate from University of Wisconsin. Before that, I got my bachelor's at DePaul in finance. And so I played, as I said, I played tennis there, and then I went on to grad school, and then I worked. I took the Illinois bar, passed it, but I never was going to practice law. I was always going on the business side. And so I started working for a company there and I did that. And I've always been in office in industrial, primarily acquisitions and development. And so that's what I've kind of done my whole career. And so, that's kind of a little bit of the background, kind of, where my career has gone. And I discovered pretty soon that, pretty early on in my career that being an entrepreneur is really what
Yeah.
motivated me in starting companies. I like that. I like starting companies. I don't like running companies as much. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And I always think you have to have that kind of entrepreneurial spirit for starting your own company, being in business development. It can be kind of a tough, if you don't have that drive and spirit for it, it can be kind of a tough road, but at least that's my thoughts so far. But my first question is, selfishly as the nonprofit person here amongst a bunch of commercial real estate people, explain it to me like I'm 5 years old. What is your job in the context of what does business development mean to you in your day to day?
Yeah, yeah. So my job, like if I was explaining to a 5-year-old, I think that's what you kind of said,
Hmm.
like I build and buy warehouses where they store everything or build everything from toys to food to guns. If I'm talking to a 5-year-old, that's stuff they understand.
Hmm.
So yeah, like that. But basically anything that you're buying in a store or or companies are using, that's what I'm working with and storing them or building them. Yeah.
Okay. And how long have you, I mean, since the beginning, I guess, how long have you been in this sub-industry of business development? Now, I know a little bit about your background that this started before you even got into the workforce, really. Like, so how long have you been, selling things and making moves in the entrepreneurial way?
Yeah. So I think I started out real like I would say it probably harkens back to about 9, 10 years old. I remember being in, I think it was fifth grade. So what are you, about 10 at that age? There's these candies that people had, now and laters. And so I used to be able, this is a long time ago. So I used to be able to buy a pack of them for a dime. And then what I would do is there's six in a pack. And so I would say I'd sell them a nickel a piece to people at school, or if you want to buy the whole pack, a quarter, I make 15-cent profit to 20-cent profit. And then I realized, well, I got the fifth grade market corner, but the fourth grade market, I'm not really hitting. So then one of my neighbor kids that love candy, I said, here's the deal. You sell for me to the fourth graders, and then whatever candy we have left at the end of the day, you can eat, but you
Mm.
give me all the money. And so I built like thriving business, making $4 or $5 a day as a fifth grader. I use it to buy baseball cards and candy myself, So that was pretty much what I used it for. But that's how I started. So like right away before fifth grade, I was selling things, to other fellow students. So yeah.
Yeah, it got you hooked in this.
Yeah, and like in law school, like but my business partner that I've had for years, has been on a couple of my ventures together. We had an outline that we did really well in contracts at University of Wisconsin. We actually printed it and sold in the bookstore for years, and for the first like 5 years we kept the profits, and afterwards we ended up giving to like the Legal Women Defense Fund that they had for whatever. But that was a good thing too. And actually, the professor after like 5 years later said, "Hey, we're changing the textbook. Do you want to change your outline?" So, it sold there for probably about 15 years. It was,
Oh
yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh, that's
So interesting.
that's awesome. And so starting from, selling candy in fourth, fifth grade to now, like what's your day-to-day look like? What does your average day, or is no day average? Is it all?
And that's what I like it. As a commercial real estate kind of developer and acquirer,
Wait,
what is great about
what
it
are
is
you hot?
I'm
No, I'm a little warm.
Scala, you're unmuted. Sorry, go ahead. Got it.
No, that's fine. I guess, day in, day out, I'm like, sometimes I'm flying out to see a property. I'm talking to a broker. I'm talking to an architect. I'm, touring a space. I'm doing a groundbreaking. Sometimes there's lawsuits. I'm getting deposed. Whatever there is evolved, that is evolved in any area of the business I'm touching, and that's really what I like. And I've a couple of the companies the last one I grew, Brennan Investment Group, I helped grow as a co-founder and the CIO. We had gotten to be more institutional and bigger, which is great, but I started getting away from doing the deals. I had 18 offices. I had 30 plus people that were kind of under my purview, and so I got away from actually touching and doing deals, and I was doing a little more administering people and all. And I didn't mind that, but it wasn't what I was passionate about. So I left about 6 months ago, started my own venture, a new one, because that's what I really wanted to do. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if Goldie's told you this story before, but I mean, this is probably why you and Goldie get along is,
Well,
people will ask her, what was it like starting your own company, Goldie B. Wolf and Co. She wanted to have that C-suite position and she cracked the glass ceiling and made it happen, right? She made her own company. And she's like, it was great. I just hate the admin. She hates, she wanted to do the deals. She didn't necessarily want to be like caring
right,
about HR. She's like, I don't
right,
care about HR.
right.
And I can
Yeah,
imagine.
and I've talked to, I'd say over the last, and I think you did ask me, I didn't really answer that part of
Mm,
it, but how I got into the Gold Initiative. So
mm.
I was at a dude ranch, and and someone told me a little bit about this. We were talking about Jen Sweeney, was mentioning it
Oh
too. We're
yeah.
sitting on a fire after we were riding horses all day, or whatever, and she was telling me about this. And there was this women's shelter that I was the president of the board that took in, women that had been either sex trafficked or abused,
Hmm.
and I was very involved with that. And I definitely I have my mom was a single mother, and she was and so I have a really soft spot for that. So I was very involved with that organization, and she told me about this, and then all of a sudden a month later she's like, we want you to be on the board and we want you to co-chair the gala. And I heard about it and she had told me a little bit about that. And I'm absolutely. And so over the course of the last 2+ years that I've been involved with the organization, I've probably talked to 20 young women, some that are alumni, some that were current scholars about different things and business things. And I love sharing that. I love being able to talk about, like starting businesses and different thing. And, Drakia, as an example,
Mhm.
I've worked with her. I probably met with her a dozen times over the last, year and a half as she's trying to get her, her own
Mhm.
development firm up and running. And she's doing it all on her own and she's
Mhm.
taking on tasks that she hadn't ever done before. And that's what's hard. And you're on an island, you're by yourself, especially when you're starting up like this. And so it's good to have support people that kind of do that. So I've offered that support to different scholars or alumni over the years. And so it's great. And to your point about Goldie, like starting your own business, I kind of had like an aha moment. I helped take a company public that Mike Reschke, who's doing the Google thing now, but he had taken a company public called Probability Trust a long time ago. 1997, we took them public. I was 27 years old. The guy that quit that was doing the FFO model, and they're like, "Hey, you're a good analyst. Can you run the FFO model?" So I did. They made me an officer. The company was great, but working for a kind of a publicly traded New York Stock Exchange company, I had the perfect aha moment about 3 years in. I saved them we were buying IBM Plaza and National City Center in Cleveland, and we were buying three office buildings, and there was an argument to be made that we could get a credit for about $1.5 million on this thing, and the CIO of the company, the chief investment officer, said, well, if you want to make the argument, that's fine. So I saved them $1.5 million. So the year before, I got like a $25,000 bonus. This is
Mm.
like in November. I'm like, okay, I saved $1.5 million. I'm not expecting to get the 1.5 million, but maybe you'll give me like 100 this year, or something bigger. I got 30,000. I got 5,000 more. If I would have done nothing over that, and I realized that there's no way that I'm going to create uh, the wealth I hope to, have, and kind of have, the ability to do that without going on my own. And so within about 6 months, I left and I created my own. I started my first company that was 100% my own, called Madison Partners Realty. And that was kind of the impetus. That was the moment when I was like, okay, I'll make a good living doing this, which is fine. I mean, some people are like working for companies, but I just
Mhm.
always felt that being on my own and being an entrepreneur and having that kind of unlimited upside, but also the unlimited downside, right? I mean, you're kind of on your own. And so I quit. My wife was pregnant with our second child, and my son was 2 years old. So, you would say it's a terrible time. And the mortgage was a mystery for about 6 months. Never knew
Mhm.
how we are going to pay it, but we somehow managed. And then we got it going. So, yeah, but you got to have the right mindset for it. Some people, and like one thing I've talked to, I say a lot of the young women I've talked to that are kind of going on there. I say you got to figure out what type of person you are, because some people thrive and succeed, and working
Mhm.
for a big corporation is a great thing if that's what you want. You can advance your way there, or you can go out on your own. And I would say more of the Goldie scholars I've talked to over the last couple of years are kind of more lean towards wanting to be entrepreneurs
Mhm.
as opposed to working for big corporations. But there's no one path to success. So
Right, right. And a lot of those skills can overlap in both, business development in these big companies versus going out on your own. But I bet there's a lot of people in here, they've decided to attend this particular, event. So they probably are interested in the business development and the entrepreneurship. And one question that I'll skip ahead a little bit that we got from the crowd that you started to touch on was, how do you determine that you've gained enough experience and network to successfully start your own venture?
and that really is a tough thing. I don't think there's ever. It's like a lot of people say, okay, you hear the young couples that say, okay, we're going to
Mhm.
have our first baby. Like, oh, it's going to be right. I have to write this. I have to have enough money. I have to have a house. I have to like thing. And there's no perfect time for it. You just got to dive in and do it. Like, if you have confidence in yourself, and the one thing you do need to do is have a network of people. And the good thing about being part of the Goldie initiative,
Mhm.
there is a wealth of people with a lot of experience. And so, if you want to talk about Katie, capital markets, Katie, who's the president of the organization. She's amazing at that. And she can help you figure out and navigate that and do that. Or, there's someone, again, we want to do accounting or legal, whatever. There's people that can help guide you and do that. So if you got a support of people that will cover the disciplines that you're not strong in. And like I harken back to Drakia because I've been working with her a lot. But like what her strength isn't is like the actual underwriting of, like, she knows the construction side, but the actual underwriting and the financial analysis, isn't as strong. She just hasn't done that as much.
Yeah.
So I have an old analyst that left Brennan just recently, and Jacob Bornstein, and I put the two of them together. Jacob's going to help her with the pro formas, and then they're, whatever. And if something happens, they'll figure out the economics on it. But there's ways that you can kind of collaborate and work together. And then you just got to find partners or people that you can work with that will cover the skill sets you didn't have, because no one has all the tools, and it's just impossible. Yeah, so.
No. And that is not surprising to hear, because I hear from a lot of Goldie scholars that they want more work in financial modeling, right? They want more examples, they want more practice to have that kind of comfort. I know there's some absolute Excel wizards in here, but this year, as the current Goldie scholars know, they're all getting the opportunity to do adventures in commercial real estate to help increase that financial modeling. So I'm going to reach out to Drakia too and say, maybe I can help you out.
Right. Exactly.
Like,
yeah.
It's a great example too, because I mean, many people in here know Drakia. Like, maybe they did or didn't know that she was trying to go on her own venture, but it's one day there's going to be like a Goldie collaboration company, and that's going to be amazing.
Yeah,
Using all your
definitely.
skills
Well,
put
there's a
together.
lot of people that across all disciplines, and so yeah, I mean, they're definitely can be collaborative, and it's a great network to start with. So.
Yeah. Okay, a couple industry questions for you as I keep it moving here. And let's see, how has business development changed since you first were brought on to that publicly traded company? The
I mean, when you say business development,
Mhm.
what do you mean specifically? Like, how's my
Yeah.
industry changed, or just
Yeah, I'm kind of cheating a bit because I'm thinking there's trying to have the wider look at, how to successfully, bring in money for your company, whether or not you're out on your own, because I want everyone here to be
right,
able to do a takeaway of,
right.
whether or not they're going to be able to start their own business or not. But maybe it hasn't changed. Is it just always been the relationship building that gets you the
Yeah,
business
yeah,
in the end, or is there?
yeah, it's joining those type of organizations where people are kind of your generation. Like I'm hanging out with the guys in the 50s. The people in the 50s probably, and then there's the ones in the 40s. Like Tina Ramos, my new partner, she just turned 40. She's got that kind of network of like the mid 30s, early 40s, and then Matt Kay's like 32, and he covers that. And my son, who's working for us now, is an analyst. He's in his 20s, and SIOR, is industrial office, and NAIOP, there's
Mhm.
AIR in Chicago, there's crew for, the
Mhm.
women in real estate in
Mhm.
Chicago. And those organizations are great because you get to network with people and that of what of like things. So if you're working for a big corporation, you wanted to be business development, whatever it is. If you're working for a big company and you're a developer, you'll go to these events. So you go to some of the biz now events, and there'll be architects there and like this and this. And so maybe, you're going to do a new development and you want to take a different look at it. And you might meet 3 or 4 different architectural firms. And now you can then, use that network that you've had. I mean, like I was just at like 2 or 3 events last night, 3 events last night, and at like the Wintrust event.
Mhm.
And I bumped into this guy that used to work for this Westminster Funds. He started his own self-storage company. He wants to have lunch with me next week. I'm having lunch with him. And at that event, at that holiday party, he came up to me and said, "Hey, I'd love to like kind of connect with you again, talked about that." So I did that. And then he introduced me to 2 guys that are looking to have a fund that invest in deals, and they might invest in some of our deals. So I'm going to send him a deal that we're doing in Texas right now. So, those type of events and that type of networking, no matter where you are, whether you're starting your own company or working for an existing company, I think it's invaluable. And like, go to all the Christmas. I mean, the Goldie Gala is an amazing event. I mean, there was almost 1,000 people there. So I know, many of you were there. In fact, I'm sure most of you were there. But if you weren't there, I mean, mean, that's a great event for networking. So all those events, I try to attend as many as possible.
I was gonna
Even
ask, like, how many is the magic number for you? As
I probably this month will do 20 parties.
wow.
Uh, yeah, like, and there's like a guy, Jim F. Garris, said, we're partnering on some data center stuff, but he has this party and it's an eclectic mix of people for all
Hmm.
across all industries because he's not a broker, he's an owner of real estate, so he have architects and environmental and attorneys and brokers and then other principals that he partners with. And so there was like 300 people there at that party. And so and then the brokers throw their parties. And so I find that to be the most valuable thing. And there's like in my industry, CBRE, Colliers, JLL, all throw a mid-year thing where they do a Cubs game. CB
Hmm.
does it, and then everyone flies in from all over the country, and like that's so valuable that I don't plan vacations around that because I want to be there for that because there's so much networking that it gets done in those events. So I mean, just being in front of people and that's when you hear about a deal. Like if your job is to do deals, that's when you hear about a deal. If your job is to do this or other opportunities, like there's a woman that I met at a ski seminar last year at Cushman & Wakefield. And then I got her companies to invest in she's out of the Carolinas. I got her company to invest to donate to the Goldie Initiative last year, and she came out to the event, and then we went out to this, and then she joined my NAP forum, and then there I got her in contact with Prologis, and then she's talking to them now, about an opportunity there. You're like, and so those type of things where you just make those connections, and then she joined our forum, and then at this dinner, this guy that runs the whole data center initiative for all Prologis out of whatever said, "Hey, I'm looking for someone," and I got up from my dinner table and said we were at Delilah's in Vegas, and I said, "Here, you sit by him for the rest of the
Yeah.
dinner," and I went over to the other table, and then she did, and then all she had 3 interviews with him and different people at the firm, So those are the type of things that happen when you're in front of those. So I mean, like I mean, we're spending a lot of time on that, but I
Yeah.
just find that to be the best thing. And maybe most of these people know that anyways. But if you don't, I definitely would encourage as much. Go to as many of those parties, go to as many events, golf outings, whatever you're into. I'm not much of a golfer. I still go to a couple a year. So, and
Yeah.
I play 12 holes and then I drink the rest of the
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
time.
Well, my only thought is like, how much alcohol consumption is that? I think,
Yeah, well, yeah,
you got to be
I
careful
2 months
with all
off a
that.
year, so I'll be a teetotaler for a couple of them, like this
Yeah.
month. There's no way I can say no to them, but I try to limit to 1 drink at each one. I did 3 last night, so yeah.
I think that's a good rule to remember because it's a real thing. It's like you can't, you have to have some rules for yourself in this industry when it comes to drinking, which is a whole other
Oh
topic.
yeah,
But,
yeah.
you know,
No, it definitely does. And the last thing you want to do is be in
right.
one of those events and be the person that got sloppy drunk.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. Totally.
that's definitely. And there are people that have, and it's not the end of the world if it happens. But you don't want to have a reputation for being that person. It's
No, no.
yeah.
And so obviously, as you're saying, having like working your networking muscles like crazy, really getting comfortable in those situations. Are there any other skills that you think are good for scholars or, the general person to develop if they want to be, in the business development, in the business deal making world?
Yeah, yeah, I mean, the one thing I'd say is it's just persistence.
Mm,
I think I probably make 20 offers, maybe 30 offers for every deal I do. And so it's just continually staying in front of people, get emails, following up, sending in offers, whatever, like just that constant. I probably get or receive, I probably receive about 500 emails a day. And I just really like anyone that sends me something, I respond. And the one thing I would say is I've got a reputation for, being very responsive. I do not let an email sit for more than 1 day ever. Like,
wow.
I'll respond to someone, even if I got a lot going on, say, hey, I'll get back to you on Monday for that,
Mhm.
whatever. I got a couple things going on, I'll do that. But being on top of that and being responsive and then just being persistent, especially whatever it is, whether you're, financing something, you're buying something, you're running numbers on something, whatever, you need to get information out of people. And the people that do that and are really on top of that, I think you tend to be the most successful. So
Yeah, because you can, with that many connections you're trying to manage, you could easily bite off more than you can chew, but you are responsive.
I've
So
got like
appreciate it.
6,000 people on LinkedIn. Now I say yes to everyone. So,
Yeah.
some of them are a little on the periphery and
Yeah.
then they trying to sell me some really weird services, but I just say yes because, I figure it's good to have a broad network. And then when I do, I don't post that much, but every once in a while I do
Mhm.
something and I'm not that active on there, but our company posts things and I definitely try to, keep our name out there in the general, in the world. So you want to kind
Mhm.
of be relevant people to think of you, because the whole point and one of the other things that we're doing, as I started this company is we're going to different brokerage shops and we're bringing breakfast or lunch and we're taking our team there and then we sit down with all the brokers and tell them what our plan is. And so I've got, three other partners and the four of us will go and meet with different shops and we'll go out to Oak Brook or go out to, Rosemont, whatever we need to do that.
Love it. And so I'm going to try to pick a few more questions here from this list before I hand it over to you all. So start thinking about your questions, which I hit here. So we talked about skills. Uh, let's see. I do have one question that was submitted ahead of time. I don't know if you'll be able to get through 5 examples here, but their question was, what were the first 5 concrete things you did to start, let's say, your most recent business?
Okay. Well, the best one was so the last company that I co-founded was called Brennan Investment Group, and the name of it, the acronym was big, right? And when
Mhm.
when Mike did it, Mike Brennan did it, he didn't realize that it was a cool acronym, and then everyone was like, "Oh, big and big, big," and and that kind of caught on. So I said, I like kind of like that. So, but Matt and I started it, and then yeah, and I knew I wanted to grab Tina as my partner. I like she's just brilliant, a rock star, and like that's the person I wanted my partner. So she was a CIO at Misner, but she was at PCCP, and I called her within a week. But so we came up with a name of like, okay, well I just come back skiing with a couple people in Switzerland, and the Matterhorn is the highest, one of the highest peaks there. It's the hardest mountain to climb, and 500 people have died trying climbing. I was like, I'm ready for a new mountain to climb, a new thing. So I like, okay, let's call it Matterhorn Investment Partners. I didn't want to have my name in it. I'm just not like ego guy with
Mhm.
that. So Matterhorn Investment Partners, and we made the name, made it legal. And then my wife wakes me up at 3 a.m. and she goes, "You got to make it Matterhorn Venture Partners. Then it could be MVP." I'm like, "Oh, that's so brilliant! Why did you do that 24 hours ago?" So, but it was her idea. I give her credit for it. And
Yeah.
so the next morning, we told our attorney we had to change the name to Matterhorn Venture Partners. So coming, obviously coming up with a name of it. Finding good, smart partners, and that's why I say, I knew that I wanted to grab Matt. He's one of those guys that can just do everything. He's 31 or 32. He just got married, and like anything like technology, or he knows how to navigate airlines and getting the specialty, whatever you need to do, he somehow figures out. He's amazing at diligence, amazing at getting things closed. And so like he just navigates everything. So if there's some type of problem, he's like, Bob the Builder, he fixes it,
Mhm.
like just knows how to do that. And then I got, Tina, which I know, I mean, she was just prolific at PCCP. She did $7 billion of deals in 10 years there in California. And she's just like just an unbelievably smart Yale undergrad, MBA from USC. And so I just knew I wanted that. So grabbing good partners, and because my first venture, I had one partner that was not the greatest partner, not terrible,
Mhm.
but it wasn't, the first one, Madison Partners Realty. We got into bed with a group that, they weren't terrible, but they didn't pay people right away, didn't do the things
Mhm.
that I like to do. I treat brokers well. I make sure I do that, and I did have that. So it is absolutely paramount if you're going to partner with someone, you find the right person and make sure like you got to really know they do. So I really am happy. I actually grabbed then a gentleman named Gary Nussbaum from CBRE. I knew I wanted him to leave CBRE and join our company, and that's my fourth partner. So find good partners. And they have to have the same work ethic you do. I mean, you can't have someone that
Mhm.
has a different work ethic. So I'd be really careful there. Find a general direction or niche. I mean, the first month or two we were kind of feeling our way. and we found our path. We're doing a lot of data center land development. We're doing development of industrial buildings and buying what's called small bay. That's where we kind of honed in on those three things, and that's our niche. We'll do it all over the country, but we're doing it with operating partners. And so in this instance, you find that. And then having all the tools, whether like the software, like if you're going to start something, or whatever, like Argus, CoStar, Excel, cash flow, you have to have all that. For me in my industry, in the acquisitions industry, those are the type of things that. And then what we were talking about before, just start selling and networking your business, meaning going to events, doing things like this, getting in front of people and selling your company and doing different things, selling and it doesn't have to be a startup necessarily either. I mean,
Yeah.
It's a big part of the eye. So more.
Oh, sorry. Did I get you? Oh, Scott, I muted you. And sorry. My trigger finger is on the mute button here. Can you unmute, Scott? I lost you.
Yep, I get
All right.
unmuted.
All right.
Okay.
Okay, so I have good name, good partners, good work ethic, find your niche, have your tools, and keep networking. Never stop.
So did I come up with 6? I might have did one too many. There you go. You had a
Hey,
bonus.
Bonus one. And then my final question before I turn it over, because I'm asking everybody this, I'm going to compile a list at the end. Do you have any recommended either books, if not books, like podcasts or any sort of kind of, media that you consume that you think scholars would
Yeah.
benefit?
So it's funny is my family loves to travel, and I really love it to learn about other cultures in other parts of the world. I've been to probably about 70 countries.
Wow.
My daughter's been to 63 and she's 23 and she wants to hit every country in the world. So we're doing her graduation trip, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, whatever. But I was saying reading books like I went to China and I read a book about like what happened, kind of, coming out of World War II and in China and the culture and all this stuff. And like, I like to immerse myself in different cultures. So I think learning other cultures in other parts of the world, I think just gives you a better perspective on everything, especially, because as the world is kind of, everything's become more global. I think that 2 books I really enjoyed that I thought there was one on negotiating called Never Split the Difference, and it's about a guy that was dealing with hostage situations. I think he was like a Harvard professor now, but he worked for I don't know if it was the CIA or the Marines or something, but it's a really fascinating book about negotiation. And I find it very helpful, some of the tricks, the tools that he uses in something like this. And then Angela Duckworth wrote this book called Grit, which I just think is great. Like, you're just someone that you want kind of because I think like what she defines grit in that book is something that just it's kind of you kind of see what type of person you are and where you're at. They have the grit scale and all this stuff, but she basically kind of looked into like the highest school level schools and all this stuff, and the thing or in the military, the thing that determines the greatest success is not whether your GPA is the highest or whether this. It's kind of this grit index and your just ability to just when you get banked down, and which happens in life no matter what, or in jobs, how you're able to respond to it and get back up and do it. So it's a really great book, and it kind of gives you a little perspective on this. It's kind of motivating. So I thought that's a great book. Someone at Chase Bank, my Chase private client guy bought me that book a few years ago, and I just highly recommend it. I really enjoyed that one. So
Awesome. Love it.
Yeah.
Those are great recommendations. I will add that to my list of, CRE executive book recommendations. And then now I am going to turn it over to the group. Does anybody here have questions? I assume you do, otherwise I'll keep going, but
I have one,
go
Kelsey.
ahead.
Thanks for sharing all your thoughts, Scott. I'm a fellow Illinois, Wisconsin person here.
All right.
Yeah. So it sounds like you've been involved with a few different ventures, and I was curious what point in time, or if it either happened naturally, or if you had a point in time in the future that helped you to determine when it was time to move on or to shift into a new venture.
Yeah, so it was interesting. So I kind of told you the story about how I started my first company, just because I just kind of felt like that there was, I could navigate in the corporate world and maybe move my way up there, but like really what I was about and what I want to do. So, and then I had that company and for about 10 years, and actually we had one partner that we did a lot of deals with, and he basically said, I'm done, I'm out during the last financial crisis, 2008, 2009. And that's when I met Mike Brennan. Someone introduced us together. We created that company. And what caused me to leave that company was not because I didn't, I mean, we grew it from zero to about 6.5 billion of assets under management. We're the second largest private industrial company in the United States. But it got to be a big company. And so instead of doing deals and doing things like that, I knew it was time to move on. I had told them probably 5 years ago that I was probably gonna be ready, because the first 5 years are tough of that business. The next 5 years were great, growing and adding all these offices and just the excitement of it. And you're getting to be, kind of a big name. The last 5 years, and I don't want to say exactly 5 years, was really difficult. It was difficult for me because I wasn't doing deals as much anymore, and I was more administering people and executive committees and all those things. And so I really thought I wanted to be back in. I'm a what people call deal junkie. I love doing deals and I love doing, and I wanted to get back to the roots of doing that. And then I had another reason. I moved from Rosemont, Park Ridge, which is right by O'Hare, to Lincoln Park about 2.5 years ago, just when they decided to do all this construction on the Kennedy. So I added about a 2.5 hour commute to my day from a 10-minute commute, and so that combined with that. And so I just was ready to do, like something new like that. And so as far as like when is the right time, or when, whatever, I think each person just needs to look at it and like say, hey, where am I, where do I want to go? And is where I'm at going to get me there? And if it's not going to get you where you want to go, then you should move on, and it might be risky, and it might take time, but you can always go back and get a job somewhere else. So that's what I always thought. It's like when I started my business, every business I started, I always knew that there was always a fallback. If you're a smart person with a degree, in that industry, you can get a job. It might take a few months, but you're eventually going to get a job. So that, taking that chance, if that's something that you aspire to do, I think it's just jump off the ledge and do it, so.
Yeah, awesome. Ellie, I see your hand's raised next. Oh, can I hear you? I can't hear you yet. We'll give you. No, I can't hear you. I'm gonna move it to
Okay, what about now?
Oh, I can't hear you. Okay, go ahead.
Sorry. Sorry about that. Scott, thank you so much for joining us today and for co-chairing. Really appreciate your investment in our growth. I just wanted to ask more details on one of the questions that Kelsey asked. When you were 30 and you started Madison Partners Realty, and as someone in their early 30s kind of approaching that same point, I'd be really curious to know, how did you source capital and debt that early into your career? And then also, if you think that starting your own venture could be like working for a large company kind of as your 9 to 5, and sprinkling in a really kind of small first or second base hit as your first deal on the side.
Well, I'll go in reverse order. I think that's a great way to do it, is to work for a company and have, people call it side hustle. I always had a side hustle. I was buying apartment complex. With my first bonus check, I bought a 4-unit apartment building. I was always doing that type of stuff as like that. So I think that's a great way, because some people will just leave a job and have no income. And then there's that pressure to get it. And they don't have as long of a runway to get it done, unless they come from a wealthy family or something. But most people don't have the luxury of not having income. And you don't want to I mean, you could do different things if you can bartend, whatever, like this, there are things like this, but staying in a career and then doing that and getting a deal done, I think is the absolute best way to do it. And I'm probably talking to 3 people now that are doing that exact same thing, that are working for a company and then working on some kind of a side deal that they can do that doesn't, whatever. And I've encouraged a lot of people to do that. So I think definitely doing that. And then what your other question was, what source?
Capital?
Yeah,
sourcing debt and capital.
Yeah. For at that point in your career.
Yeah. And that's a great question because so when I started Madison Partners Realty, the first deal I bought, there's a company called Northern Builders. I bought this building in Lisle, Illinois, and had Delta Dental Illinois, Sourcing, Interlink, and Charles Levy as the three tenants, and I remember it. And I paid a pretty good amount of money. It was like a $13 million deal, or no, a $15 million deal. And I put 10 million of debt on it, and I raised about 5 million in equity. And the brokers helped me raise equity, and it wasn't easy. But the hard part was because I didn't have the balance sheet to stand behind the debt. I had to bring in this a guy I knew that he had a successful real estate development company. Him and his partner, I gave them part of the upside to stand behind the debt to be, you know, whatever. And you might have to do that on your first deal if you're going to go on your own. You're going to have to, you know, find someone with some, you know, some substantial, you know, or a little better maybe net worth than you have to stand behind the debt. There's ways to navigate it, and there's different things like this. But definitely, you know, I really did friends and family for the first, you know, couple deals, and then I found a partner that had a little more, you know, wherewithal to do deals, and it made it a little easier. But yeah, there's different ways to go. But you're not gonna, as a 30-year-old starting your first deal, or 32-year-old, wherever you are, you know, do your first deal. You're not gonna get an institution to invest in you right away. So you're probably gonna have to go that route where you do that if you're gonna go on your own.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Neva?
Hey Scott, thanks for coming in and to chat with us today. You are amazing. Like every time I talk to you, I feel like I'm learning something new. And I love your spirit. My question was basically what Ellie asked, like, because we all, not all of us, but most of the scholars are in a phase where we just either graduated, we're going to grad school, we got into our first job or second job. We're just building our knowledge base, and the big question is like the downside of things. Like for some, there's no economic, like there's nothing to fall back on economically. And
Right.
we want to take the next step, but like we definitely like realistically need, like, especially for some of us supporting our families and whatnot, like you were with your second kid coming in and so much going on. Like I don't know how I would know where when I get to the point where okay, I'm gonna do something big, or I'm gonna start this and that, and like how can I break over the mental barrier of just like like, because the only thing I know right now is like apartments because people live in it, like, you know, like getting over that, except of network. And how do I kind of, I don't know how to get to that
No,
stage.
I know what you're
Creating a
saying.
lot of anxiety for, you know,
Right,
around
right.
it.
And I had that with so when I did start that company, so the thing that I was able to follow, you need to have some ability to have some income, right? Because you can't survive. Very few people are in a position where they can survive on no income. So what I did is the company where I left Private Realty Trust, they hired me back as a consultant. I did some expert witness work. I did like consulting with this multi condo developer, and I did pro forma runs for them and helped them, you know, put it together for the debt. They were doing apartment to condo conversions, you know. So whatever your skill set is when you're at that company, I mean, again, I like the idea of trying to do a deal on your own. You know, like my son right now just started working for me, but I'm leaving in half an hour, and we're going to go tour a 3-flat in Wrigleyville, and he wants to live in the garden unit and rent the other 2 and buy that. He saved his money up. Oh, you know, he worked at CBRE, and that's going to be his first venture on the side, and to do something like that. And that's going to make a little bit of money. I mean, his rent will be almost zero if the math of this place works out. If it's not there, it'll be another one. He'll find one eventually. But he's going to buy something like that, and he's got a little bit of money saved for a down payment. But they're like, I definitely think just to dive out and leave a job, you know, whatever, like having some income, you can't have none. Like, so whatever it is. And so I think a lot of people, the safest way to do this, and the way to do it so that you don't just freak out in 3 months, I haven't made any money. It is to continue to work at your job for a while and figure out that and do both simultaneously. Now, obviously, if you're competing directly, like say you're doing multifamily as your career, and then you try to buy a competing multifamily building, That's not going to work with your company. They're not going to like that. But you could work for a multifamily developer, whatever, or owner, and buy a 4-unit multifamily, building. They're not going to perceive that as competition. So there's ways to kind of do that. But like, I would never encourage someone just to leave like blindly. You try to take a soft landing and build up a little bit of a nest egg, knowing that's going to happen. Like I know I'm pretty sure that's what Drakia did when she left. She had built up a little bit of nest egg so she could, support herself during this time frame. And like a lot of the other people I've talked to have done that. I had a little bit of savings. I didn't have a lot. I had enough to get through about 6 months, and then I had to start making money. So that would be my answer. Did that answer it?
Yeah, you did answer it. It's just like, for example, a lot of people scare me, even at work. Like I talked to somebody who was a landlord and like, oh, it's so much work. The plumbing broke and they cost this much. The roof and they cost like half of like what they were saving up for it. So there are like a lot of capital expenditures that sometimes you don't expect. And for that, do you go to your equity partners? Like, do you raise more equity? Do you put in your own money? Like,
I definitely would cushion a little bit extra with your equity partners, or find an equity partner that say, hey, equity partners, individual equity partners on smaller deals like that don't like to have a capital call, right? That's like, you don't want to. Let's just say you're going to buy $1 million place and you have to put $400,000, and you find an equity partner that's going to give you, 90% of that, $360,000. They want to put 360 in, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh, the roof was done. I didn't realize it's 100,000 extra. The lender's not going to give you an extra 100. You got to ask for them for 100,000. They don't like that, but that's why you got to be very diligent in your your due diligence on the physical and anything that could go wrong. And then you should build a cushion. We're doing a little $5 million deal in Texas right now, and we know we have to replace the roof, but we also add a cushion of another 3 months worth of the mortgage as a cushion. Plus, you get the security deposits, which, in commercial deals, typically you can use the security deposits as extra cash. It's a liability, but it's cash and whatever. So using those type of things and having a cushion there is definitely that's just part of being, a good fiduciary to your investors, is making sure you have enough capital on any deal that you do, that you hopefully don't have to go back to the well and ask for them for money.
all right, thank you. I'm gonna let other people ask the questions, but I really enjoyed it. I would listen to your podcast every single day.
Well, thank you so much. That's so
Yeah.
nice.
It gives me this a classic Goldie question, which is, so what's wrong with you? Tell me, we've all, always talk about how great, but like, what is either like a challenge that you face that like if you could go back, you would do it differently, or, something that you still continue to work on, maybe?
Uh, Let me think. There's a lot of things wrong with me. You could just ask my no, here. No, what I did wrong on my first venture, and actually I lost a friendship over it, which was really bad. And is my first venture when I started Madison Partners Realty, I had my partners, Sam Andorino, who's actually the general counsel still at Brennan. We started Madison Partners Realty together, two of us. And then I brought in this woman that I had worked for before, named Patty, and she was our accountant. And the first couple of deals, I gave her 25% ownership in that. But I was taking all this risk and stuff. It was way too much ownership for just the accounting function. And she was great. I mean, she was very good at it. It was with that. But I gave away too much ownership early on because you just kind of throwing it away. And I remember the next partner that started doing a lot of deals with me, which again wasn't the perfect partner for me because we had a little different approach to business. But the one thing he did say is like, you're way too liberal with giving away ownership. I'm a generous person by nature, and I like to give, and I like to give my time. I like to give, and so I did give away too much. And so I would be, I wouldn't say greedy, but I would be very reluctant. You can pay people for those services. Accounting services can be paid for. Legal services generally can be paid for. My business partner at Brennan, and before that, Madison Partner was an attorney, but he was more than an attorney. He also was a CPA, and he did everything. So it wasn't like that. But if just for the legal function, just for the accounting function, I wouldn't give away ownership unless you absolutely have to. I would say hoard that ownership. Within reason. If you're going to bring in a partner that you think, like I brought in Tina and Matt and Gary, and I have a little great ownership in them, but they have a fairly significant ownership in the company. It's because I know that they're going to carry their weight. We had another person ask to join our company, and I just didn't. I wouldn't give that person ownership at the level that that person would have wanted. So you got to kind of be smart about that. So I'd be very reticent to do that, and I definitely made a mistake doing that. And then because of that, at one point I cut that person's ownership back, and then that person got upset, and then I lost the friendship over it. So
yeah. Tough lesson to learn.
Yep.
Steph?
Scott, thanks for being with us. I was wondering, in terms of this new venture, or maybe in the past as well, you are transitioning to markets. You mentioned industrial and then maybe data center too. How do you get into a new asset class, and how do you get to know the market there?
Yeah, that's the hardest part. I had done some data center deals when at Brennan. I probably did about 7 of them, so I had a little knowledge of it. Yeah, getting into a new market is just time and effort, and spending time burying yourself in and talking to the people that are in that industry, talking to the brokers, talking to other owners if you get a chance to. Like that. So, what the amount I've really done industrial and office my whole career, and luckily for me, people say, "Oh, well, you're so smart to get into industrial." The only reason I did it is when I was raising money on office deals to the Neva's point earlier. When I lost a tenant in an office deal, I would have to do a capital call if a tenant lost, because you have to put in $50 or $100 TI. Whereas if I lost a tenant in an industrial deal, it's $1 or $2 or $3 a foot. So I could have capitalized the deal up front to handle losing tenants in industrial, but I couldn't do that with office. And so I transitioned over to industrial just because it made more sense for my investors, not because I saw the world going that way. I wish I had that much, I'm not that smart, I guess, but I'm smart, but I did figure out that that's what, what I needed to do. So, did I answer it or yeah?
Yeah, that's helpful. I'm wondering, in terms of, is there a strategy you use in terms of, okay, maybe you're familiar with Texas. Am I going to only do deals in Texas, or is it really just asking people where the market's hot when you're transitioning?
So I follow demographic trends a lot, and I'm looking where bodies are moving, because for industrial consumption is tied a lot to where bodies are. So obviously Florida and Texas, Carolinas, Atlanta, some of the Southeast and the Southwest have a lot of growth. But I'm bullish on the Midwest in the long term with weather and water and other things like that. So, but I'm going what we're doing now is what I did at Brennan is whenever we wanted to go another market, I added a market officer. I don't want that big infrastructure. So now I'm keeping my company. Our partners in Texas are 2 guys in Texas that left Invesco and wanted to start their own company, but they were more institutional. They never raised money on deals. So then we're coming in, we're helping them do that piece of the puzzle that they don't have, that skill set. So we're landing our debt and equity. Tina's a prolific equity and debt raiser. She's amazing at it. So she's got so well connected at that. So between her and I'm pretty good at it too. And the 2 of us are able to put debt and equity together on deals. And then, Matt and Gary are very good at blocking, tackling, and getting the deals over the finish line, or helping source the deals. So we're partnering with groups. We have a partner. I have a young woman out of Atlanta that I've always wanted to do business with. And she is a really great broker, but now we're going to partner on deals in Atlanta. I have a group out of Greenville that's doing the Carolinas. I've just closed my 8th deal on this Palm Leaf Holdings with a partner. He's Kareem out of Chicago, but he's buying in Florida. We've done 8 deals in Florida, and we're aggregating portfolios. But I'm partnering with people that have local expertise, so I don't have to have it. So we'll do the deal. We did the deal in Chicago. We did a deal in Kenosha. We'll do deals in the area where we are domiciled. But outside of that, either you bring in people, that become part of your company, or you partner with groups. And we're now partnering, because now I don't have them as my overhead. If I don't do a deal with them in a year, that's on them, whatever. I don't have to carry them. So that's my new niche, because I don't want to be back to 18 offices again. That's just not what I want.
Yeah.
But that could be right for some people, so yeah.
Any final questions from the group before I wrap us up here? Okay, I will just say thank you, Scott, so much for joining us today. I was really excited to have you, excited to have alumni for this call too. I hope you enjoyed it. Scott, do you have any final words of advice or thoughts on where scholars could go with business development and entrepreneurship?
No, I mean, I'm excited for all of you. It's so fun to be kind of at the beginning of your careers, and there's so many opportunities there. But find some area that you like and love to do, whatever. And like, I love my job. I love what I do. And if you love that, it's always fun. It's not work, right? Then when you love it, and so that's the one thing I'd say is you find something. And I wasn't loving my last job for the last couple of years as much. And now I love my job again. So whatever you do, find something you love, because you'll be a lot better at it if you do.
Awesome. Love it. Great piece of advice to end on. Thank you everyone so much for joining. I'll put this recording online. I'll send it around. But otherwise, happy holidays if I don't see you. And yeah, have a good one.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Kelsey.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.